Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today, we'll be wrapping up the official storyline for Kaldheim, concluding with our part 2 of Chapter 5. If you haven't already, make sure you check out part 1 and the entire Kaldheim story in the playlist linked in the description below. Right now, we're in the middle of a cataclysmic conflict over the fate of Kaldheim. Tibalt's Doomskar has pitted all of the realms against one another, and as the battle rages, Tyvar, Kaya, as well as their companions, seek the help of the gods to correct this situation. Only issue is there's an army of undeads, giants, trolls, and demons who all stand in their way. Can Kaldheim survive? Remember guys, if you like our content, make sure you leave us a like, subscribe, and check out our Patreon page linked in the description below. And make sure you stay till the end of the video for your chance at an exclusive giveaway. So with that, let's get back to the lore. Kaya, the assassin for hire turned would-be hero, has stood her ground against plenty of foes in the past. Only, there was always the promise of payment at the end of those jobs, but now, here on Kaldheim, Kaya was fighting for something more than merely coin. Though she faced an overwhelming opponent, a demon from the darkest tales of Kaldheim's past, the Demon Lord, Varigoth, along with that pesky voice of doubt still echoing in her head, Kaya did not run. She would become a hero. Though even Kaya had to admit that maybe she was a bit overconfident in throwing both of her axes at the demon out of frustration. Sure, she landed some good hits, but they were glancing, and only seemed to make Varigoth angry. The large demon charged towards her, crashing his massive axe down and swinging it across his body. Kaya was able to dodge through the lumbering attacks, which were much quicker than she had anticipated. Luckily, she had an ally in this fight, the god of voyages, Kazuma. The god was now wielding a beautifully crafted curved sword, and like water, she carved over the demon's armor in crashing waves. The blows found their target, damage was done, but Varigoth didn't slow down. Losing focus on the battle right in front of her, Kaya notices more winged monsters landing between them and their destination, a bridge whose sole protector happened to be Holvar, the god of battle, and the instrument of their victory. Kaya knew that if only they could reach Holvar, they could deliver the Sword of the Realms back to him, the weapon used to cause this Doomskar. Perhaps in his immortal hands, he could fix all of this. But none of that matters if she cannot get past Varigoth. She needs to focus, one challenge at a time. Fighting as if battle companions for decades, Kaya and Kazuma fought like they had predetermined their strategy. They charged together, Kazuma going low and Kaya going high. Kazuma took a hit from the demonic war axe that sent her flying backwards. Luckily, it was just the blunt end of the hilt, or surely even the god would have been killed. Still, this opened Varigoth up to Kaya, as he was still recovering from the massive swing. She flipped over the demon's head and bit deep into his shoulders with one of her axes, then appeared behind the demon. Still, the damage was minimal, as Varigoth was able to grab Kaya's leg, which would have spelled disaster if Kaya hadn't phased through the crushing grasp. Still, after how much she's used this ability today, it was exhausting even to cause her leg to phase out. It wasn't something she could depend on moving forward. With every dodge, with every near miss or near decapitation, a little familiar voice echoed in Kaya's head. It was her doubt. She could leave, right now. No one would blame her. She didn't have to return ever again. She wouldn't have to face anyone's judgment. Kaya shook the thoughts from her head. Yeah, she could leave, but she wouldn't. As Varigoth was beginning to be joined by his fellow demons, other winged monsters who had jumped through the Doomskar, Kaya started to calculate one final assault. That is, when she heard the roar of another horn, this one much closer than it had been before. A tidal wave of bronze, spears, and muscle slammed into the Draugr and demon forces, sweeping them away like sand. The elves, Kaya realized. They had been rallied and are fighting on the side of sanity. Tyvar must have gotten through to his brother, Harold, the king. Thank goodness for that cocky upstart, Kaya finally admitted. Tyvar stepped from the formation as the group now had a second to breathe. He of course was wearing that all too familiar smirk of self-satisfaction, but now Kaya didn't even mind. Tyvar introduced Kaya to Harold, king of the elves of Skemfar, refuge and soldier in the Doomskar. Kaya gleefully respects the arrival of the king, but their introduction was cut short by a loud metallic crunch, as the demon's leader, Varigoth, broke through the ranks of the rallied forces. Tyvar jumped back into the fray, not to lead the attack, but was behind the line, aiding his comrades with his transmutation magic. He went down the pike bearers and enchanted their armor, almost making it grow and conform to their specific shapes. Where once the demon's axes hacked through, finding flesh underneath, this new enchanted armor deflected all but the harshest blows. With it, the elves again began to push back the assault. Kaya turns to the Elf King and talks about Tyvar's personality. He's foolish, they can both agree on that. They also agree that right now, he must be having the time of his life. All this glory and true tests of his mettle. But this isn't the place for Harold or Kaya. The king was made aware of her ultimate mission: get to the bridge and find Halvar and end this Doomskar. He offers to aid Kaya in that mission. She agrees, and they again make their way to the God of Battle. As they gallop their way through the fight atop Harold's giant reindeer mount, she could see the power of the Elven King's magic in action. Demons would pop up ever so often to launch a strike, but with a wave of his hand, their weapons would sprout into flowers, whose vines circled around the demon's arms and throats. And with that power, they had finally made it, the bridge on which the God of Battle was defending. Kaya approaches Halvar, who initially takes an aggressive stance, believing they are enemies looking to cross his bridge. But that fear subsides as Kaya reveals the Sword of the Realms, a weapon of brilliance that started all this chaos. Halvar recognizes it as the blade his friend Cole was making for him before he fell. Halvar shrugged. He never believed an elf would be the one to help return it to him. Harold too scoffed at Halvar. He hadn't ever planned to help the usurper gods in his lifetime, but it appeared he was the only one who could possibly make this mess right. The elves in the Kaldheim pantheon don't really see eye to eye, but nevertheless, Halvar understands what this weapon can do, and he believes he can close the Doomskar if given enough time. They must defend the bridge while he casts its powerful spell. Kaya bucks and asks why this bridge is so important. Halvar gives the most noble of responses. There are innocent people on the other end of this bridge, families. Kaya and Harold agree to his terms. As Halvar began the spell, Harold and Kaya are beset by an endless force of Draugr. Too many, in fact. They believe their stand to be folly, but still, they stood and fought for as long as they could. But the fighting seemed to stop, even for a moment, as the sky above them, this giant scar, exploded in lightning and expanded. From this wound, a giant serpent slithered forth. Great. What now, thought Kaya. Harold recognized it immediately. By the ancient gods. It was Koma the Cosmos Serpent, a being most sacred to the elves. As its massive shadow enveloped the battlefield, everything seemed to stop in awe. Koma saw another portal already open, the tear into the realm of the dead, and began to descend into it. Its massive body swooped down, crushing countless Draugr, and totally obliterating the undead ranks, thinning them beyond recovery. And through the Doomskar Koma went, a wonder that lasted but a moment, but changed everything. Through the scar Koma had opened came more figures. They looked like angels to Kaya. They were the Valkyrie from another realm. Inga Runais had told stories about them when she first arrived to Kaldheim. Beings of pure justice, devotion, and honor made form, as their winged brigade clashed with the demonic shadows who took flight. However, among them was one who had no wings. It was no Valkyrie. As they fell closer to Kaya, they created what looked like shards of glass out of nothing, landing safely atop them rather than crashing violently to the ground. This person had certainly piqued Kaya's interest, and if they brought the Valkyrie, also earned her respect. Before introductions are properly made, they're forced to again go on the defensive as more demons march towards Halvar, who still was charging the Sword of the Realms. As they exchanged blows, they're able to at least share names. This person, calling themselves Nico Ares, didn't sound like a Kaldheim name to Kaya, but whatever the case, introductions would have to wait. Another loud, metallic scrape. A large, hulking figure again appeared. It was Vargoth. Kaya was shocked he had survived the elvish assault. Though, he was finally injured. The demon's armor was dented, or in some places completely missing. He had also lost his weapon. The demon's blood boiled out of his body from 100 different wounds. But still, he lurched, with anger and rage propelling him forward. And on his back, Tyvar, bloodied, bruised, about to pass out from effort. Harold saw his brother in danger at this monstrosity and whispered a hiss, a spell summoning serpents from the ground to wrap and bite at Vargoth's legs. This newcomer, Nico, conjured and threw shards of glass like spears at the demon, but he simply swatted them away with his thick skin. Vargoth kicked away at the snakes and continued forward towards Halvar. Tyvar, weak, still managed to reveal his wrist blade and jammed it into the demon's wing. Not a fatal attack, nor one that would even slow Vargoth down, but it did draw his eyes away from the group for a split second. The opening Kaya was looking for. Kaya was here to be a hero, but that didn't erase her experience as an assassin. It took no special magic, no phasing, just years of practice and fluid motions. Kaya slipped in under Vargoth's free hand, dodging a single strike, and swung one of her axes clean through the demon's throat. Vargoth looked surprised, but that shape on his face soon faltered as he swung one final time, finding no vengeance, collapsing, and dying. Behind them, a sudden rushing sound drew the hero's attention. Halvar, the god of battle, was in a trance-like state, glowing that same godly glow Kaya had come to recognize as the Kaldheim divine. In the rippling waves of blues, greens, and purples, they watched as an aurora streaked across the sky, slowly mending the tears of the Doomskar. It was finally over. The Draugr who remained in Bredegard, the realm of humans, may have been mindless, but sensing that the battle was over, many shambled away in different directions. Demons, knowing their assault had failed, took flight to flee from the Valkyries' justice. These would be loose ends for Bredegard to face in the coming years, threats always present until the brave vanquished the final reminders of this terrible day. As bad as it was though, Kaya looked over at a small child staring at Halvar in wonder. He was from the village the god had protected, and Kaya thought to herself, yeah, this is gonna make one hell of a saga. Tyvar and Kaya survey the now quiet battlefield. Tyvar recounts the saga of the foreign woman, one who belonged to no realm, who single-handedly brought down Vargoth, the Blood Sky Sire, and quelled the Doomskar. Honestly, Kaya didn't do this alone, but she liked the ring of it. She asks if Tyvar will be spreading this saga personally, but he says he may not be around to do so. He has given it more thought. Being a planeswalker, he may like exploring this multiverse Kaya speaks of, finding new lands who may need help, just as Kaya had helped Kaldheim in its time of need. There was still plenty of glory to be had out there, and he was excited by the possibilities. The pair meet back with the leaders of the human clans, the defenders of Bredegard, Arnie Brokenbrow, Finn Fangbearer, Sigrid Godchosen, and of course, Ingaroon Eyes. The King Herald with his elven honor guard too were there. They wrapped up their conversation discussing the damage to the other realms, and how Bredegard will be dealing with the effects of this Doomskar for years. The idea almost makes Arnie excited. More battles with demons is right up his alley. Herald announces that the elves will shelter here in Bredegard until their ancient magic is able to produce an omen path for them to return to Skemfar. Until then, the elves, men, and usurper gods will hold a tenuous peace. Everyone nods respectfully. Inga brings up Kaya's initial reason for coming to Kaldheim. This monster she looked to slay, hired on by some mysterious client. The monster had gotten away, and Kaya feared it had the ability to travel across more than just these realms. If she could track it down, she would, but that hardly seemed like a main priority after today's events. Just then, the one who had come with the Valkyries, this Nico Ares person, joins the conversation inquiring about what Kaya means by other realms outside of Kaldheim. Kaya tries to explain plainly, and with each new sentence, Nico becomes more and more intrigued. Then they ask, are one of these planes you speak of called Theros? Kaya's surprised. How do they know about Theros? Then it hits her. They're another planeswalker, a new one at that, much like Tyvar was when they first met. Kaya walks past Nico and says, we should probably talk. And that, you guys, is the conclusion to the Kaldheim storyline. There was an epilogue which sort of wraps up the Vorinclex story point, which you can find linked in the description below and I already discussed. But as for the development of Kaya, we've seen a full transformation from a hired killer to a true blue hero of the Gatewatch, the start of what I could assume is Gatewatch 2.0. And Tyvar Kell as well was meant to be a homebody planeswalker uninterested in the events around them, and he sort of evolved into someone who's willing to jump into the Great Blind Eternity, with the pair promising to meet again together somewhere out there in the future. We also get a little taste of the other new planeswalker in Kaldheim, Nico Ares, who in this chapter finally shows up in very confusing fashion. To those only reading the main storyline, you're probably wondering, where the hell does Nico, Valkyries, and Coma the Cosmos Serpent all come from, right? And it probably seems really random, but a side story focused on Nico Ares sort of explains what happens there, and that's something I'm going to cover in its own little Nico specific video later. So my final thoughts overall on Kaldheim's story. Well, I think it finished weaker than it started. There was a lot of build-up, mystery, and that was all great, but it quickly pivoted to something completely different from the initial setup. The pacing felt really off, with only 5 official chapters and basically all the meat of the conflict being pushed to the final chapter. It was all way too hurried and rushed. My advice, either slow it down and expand how many chapters you'll have, or pace things up so it doesn't feel like everything's happening right at the end. I think Kaya as a character developed nicely. I wish we saw a little more of the relationship between Tyvar and his brother. It's teased a lot on the cards and even having a story spotlight card, but nothing actually comes of it in the story. So a lot of wasted potential there. And Nico Ares, yeah, they have their own short story, but still, it's not enough dedication to their development to make me really care about them. And the way they just appeared at the end of chapter 5 seemed really off. My biggest beef with Kaldheim is the way they handled the world itself. For a Norse-inspired world with different realms and races and gods, you really feel like you're stuck in just a bog-standard plane. There's so much to work with here, especially with the gods, but we don't even see nearly any of them in the story. In total, I think we only seen like 4 gods the entire time. Where's the rest of the pantheon? They're just ignoring this massive Doomskar? And what about all the other realms? Why did the undead attack? What about the dwarven realm? Or any of the others not explored? It all goes back to pacing at this time. Wizards just won't dedicate more chapters, and if they did, I'm sure the story could have explored Kaya maybe jumping from realm to realm, teaming up with different gods there and learning about pieces of the puzzle. But we didn't get that. Kaya's in the same old human realm we've seen 100 times and has a very short trip to the demon realm, and that's it. It really didn't explore Kaldheim or do it justice. I know, it's really easy for me to sit here and just bash on Wizards for handling the story, right? We get it, it's been stinking for a long time now. I hope that I can at least share with you guys the broad strokes of it in an entertaining way until they can figure out how to actually tell a story. Anyway guys, that's gonna do it for the official Kaldheim storyline. As a reward, let's include a giveaway to mark the end of this chapter in MTG. One viewer will get this Kaldheim bundle as a way of me saying thank you so much for supporting the channel. To enter, all you need to do is leave a comment and be a subscriber. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is provided in the video's description, as that would be the best place to contact me if you're a winner, and that's also where I'm going to be posting the winner in a few days. So make sure you follow me there and then check back, because I'll also include the winner as a pinned comment on this video a little bit later. Anyway guys, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!